am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to dye 200 grams of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Roving with some solar dyeing techniques. Woohoo! This video is sponsored by Sarah, and I am really excited to dye this 200 grams of roving for her. This roving is 100% Peruvian highland wool. I pre-soaked the roving overnight so it would be totally saturated all the way through with no dry spots, and we have a cloudy and rainy day today. So this is going to actually have been pre-soaked for a couple days by the time we can get outside and set things up to dye this fiber with the heat of the sun. I'm really excited, and Sarah, thank you so much for sponsoring this video. The roving has pre-soaked for well over 24 hours. But I'm now actually going to go put it through the spin dryer. Not for very long, but I want the fiber to be damp and not saturated because we're going to add it to these 1 quart mason jars, and I want to be able to add a bunch of liquid back in, so I don't want to already introduce all the liquid in with the roving itself. If you don't have a spin dryer, you could use a salad spinner, or gently lay the roving on some towels and roll it up to remove that excess water. I hope we'll be able to fit all the roving into the jars, honestly. But we are gonna do some blues and greens and teals here today. But I wanna start off with a little bit of liquid dye in each of the containers. And I'm not measuring. I'm just sort of doing, this is some Twilight, Twilight Gray. This is some, these are all 1% stock solutions. This is some Dharma Brilliant Yellow. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to put in some Avocado. We will be adding some powders to these jars, but I didn't want to start with powder on the very bottom because I was afraid that maybe it wouldn't dissolve. And so here what we've mixed is a really nice green. Okay, and now I'm going to find one end of one piece of roving and put that down. And I'm going to find one end of the other piece of roving and put that down. Okay, my dust mask is on, and now I am going to start adding some dry dye powder. I'm using the back of like a spoon kind of thing to tap it in. Don't forget we still have no acid in here. So that was some teal green. Now I'm going to add some more roving. Okay, now we're going to do some sour apple. Now let's do some Saphire blue. Tiny amounts of the powder. Using new spoons each time with each color. Okay, now let's do some emerald green. And we'll be using some of the same other colors that we've used already again, but with new spoons. Yeah, and sometimes powder's falling along the side. And I'm definitely adding different amounts of the powder to... Oh no! You guys! made a big mistake. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Shoot. Well, this is what we're gonna do. We are gonna add, what was it? I did the sapphire blue, and I want to add a little bit of emerald green. And well, these, since I did not write down the order as I was doing this, what we're gonna do, add some emerald green there, and we are gonna transfer this one into this jar. That is too funny. Oh dear. And then we will start again doing something similar, but not the same. Oh dear. Well, that, guys, was really funny. Okay, let me go wash my hands. Well, now they're definitely gonna not be the same, but they will still be related. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And I'm going to be pouring the same color over the top of them. So, okay, we've got a nice base color. So this one has some symmetry in the order that the colors were added that our second one probably won't have. But let's do, and I'm intentionally just starting off in something that I know is a slightly different order. Trying to make them related but not the same. Okay, so that's some sour apple. Then we're going to do this is some sapphire blue. Then we're going to do some teal green. Emerald green. Followed by some sour apple. Some sapphire blue. Finally, some teal green, which I'm going to put on top of this one. I'm going to put sort of in there and on top of that second one. I rinsed the ends off of all the utensils I used in about a little over 1.5 cups of some water. And now I am going to add like a healthy pinch, maybe a second one, of some Bright Aqua. And stir this up. Rinse off my gloves. Okay, I just want to show you what the jars look like now. You can see some hints of the color, but in this one you can see more because we retransferred. But a lot of that powder can't spread yet. There's not liquid around. So I am going to take this color that I mixed, and again we still have no acid yet, and I am going to slowly add it to the jars. And so you can see this color sort of just spread down. And soak in, hopefully. There's about 2/3 cup left. I'm going to do about half of this full, pour that color down, half of that full, pour that color on down. Okay, so with the introduction of the liquid color, you can see some differences depending on the path, I think, around the outside of the jar and how far that color can penetrate. But I'm now going to go and refill this up with water. So it'll still have some color, it'll just be more dilute than before. This is where we are going to start adding some vinegar. To our little jar, I'm going to add 1, 2, 3, and 4 tablespoons of white vinegar, and gently stir. Okay. And now I'm going to start adding this mixture onto both jars. Okay. Sort of pat that down. There still could be some white in here. It all depends on how this color sort of pulls through the fiber. And we are totally making a mess, but that is okay. And now I'm just going to sort of pour. Okay, and now we are going to go and get some plain water to keep layering, but sort of want to show you what's happening. We have a bunch of colors coming through. The reason why I kept acid out of the first time I added the water is that I wanted to give a chance for some of the colors to spread before potentially striking. And this time I filled this with like 2 cups of water and 4 tablespoons of white vinegar again, and just sort of non-specifically adding it to the jars. I'm not planning on adding more acid, but I will get more water and keep filling them until it looks like things are submerged. Okay, things are pretty wet. If the fiber was super wet from the get-go, I don't think we would have the colors spread out quite as much. But now I'm going to place the lid on to each of them, and we are going to clean up this area, you know, make sure that there's no dye on the outside of the jars, and take them outside to sit in the sun. Our jars are now outside, and as the sun moves across the sky, I will move them to different places in my yard so they can get heat from the sun. And we'll leave them out all day. There is a fair amount of color. I think a lot of the powder stuff might be hidden on the inside, I hope, so we might see some real cool surprises when we open that up. But some of these colors are also peeking towards the outside, which is awesome. I don't think it is just me, but after an hour it looks like some of these colors have spread out. And I definitely see at least one dry white patch. I'm curious how much white will be in here overall on Sarah's Roving. 12 hours later, after we put these in the sunlight, it is 9 o'clock at night and the sun has been down for a little while. But these jars are honestly still warm. That heat from the sun did make an impact. And look at how these colors have spread out. I'm really interested that it has spread mostly in one direction. I'm not entirely sure for the reasoning there, but I am really excited to open them up. However, I have a little bit of an internal debate here because I could open them now, but yeah, I could open them now and rinse them. But my Dyepot is busy, so I wouldn't be able to steam it until much later. So I think I'm gonna let these sit more than a few hours. I'm gonna let them sit until tomorrow, maybe even tomorrow evening, just to give it that time. And then when I open them up, if we do see any bleeding, and I mean any bleeding at all, then we can steam set it. There is certainly no harm that will come to our roving from sitting in these for a greater period of time. And so, yeah, I think that is my plan. It is the next day, and I am going to wash these one at a time. But I sort of wanted to show them off and show that they do have some similarities. Like they both, whoops, they both have a side with heavy color and a side that is a lot less pigmented. Let's open these up. Okay, I wonder if we're going to be able to tell which one is which, because the application was slightly different. Interestingly, this still feels almost like a tiny bit warm, and you can see some speckles around. I think one of the grains might have broken. Ooh, ooh, that is cool. The color at the bottom doesn't really go with the rest as much, but I think there are some flecks of yellow throughout. But ooh, that's cool. There's different greens and blues. That is really, really pretty. Now don't forget, we have not heated this at all. Well, that's not true. The sun heated it. But beyond the sun, we have not applied any additional heat. We were just in the jars for probably 27 hours total. And there is a slight amount of bleeding. Not bad considering that we did add powder to the jar. Going in again. This time I'm gonna let it soak. I'm really glad that I took that color and poured it over the top. I think that adding that pastel color mixture in kept us from having a ton of white, which could be fine. It would still spin up really pretty to have the white with the swirls of color. I just wanted something that felt more, had more color all the way throughout. The bleeding is so slight. Yeah, that barely even registers, especially because there is some color on the bottom of this pan. I am making sure that the water is not running over the roving itself. But I'm now going to add a tiny bit, just a little bit on my hand, of dish soap. Again, trying to make sure that the water isn't running directly over the roving. More on the side because I don't want to agitate it and felt it. Okay. Now I'm gently pressing the roving so it can soak up the soapy water, which I know you can't really see. And the bleeding is, oh, quite small, quite small. It's not enough bleeding that I want to go and try to steam set it. But I am going to go and rinse the soap out and sort of carefully rinse it a few more times, and I'll let you know if it's not rinsing out. On the very next soak, the water is clear. So that soap helped a lot. Yeah, that is completely clear. When the fiber is in here, you do see a little bit of the reflection. But I'm gonna rinse this. Actually, this probably will be the last rinse, and I'm gonna go put it through spin dryer, and then we can check on our other roving from the solar dyeing. With this one, I am not going to film the washing. I'm just gonna let you see what it looks like as we put it into the first batch of water. Ooh, this one's a lot more green, but we also have that sort of, those brown hints towards the bottom. If you look at the jar, There's a few spots where you can see a tiny bit of residual dye, but otherwise I would say almost all of that dye is in our Roving. Yeah, this one has a little bit of bleeding right now, but again, I think that there could have been some dye that just didn't dissolve completely, and so that is what we are rinsing out here. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wash this as I did the very first one, and also put it through the spin dryer and hang it up to dry. Here is the finished dry Roving. You can tell the colors that we had at the bottom of our jars in both instances, and ultimately that color did not blend anywhere near as much as the others. You can still pick out a couple green and blue hues, but it looks more like there's mostly 3, maybe 4 colors throughout the main skein, where I think I added a few more in there, which goes to show you don't need to go overboard with adding multiple colors. Maybe just stick with a few and that'll be okay. The real win for this technique is that I mixed a pastel color and poured that over top everything else. I think that that made a huge difference in the way the colors came together, because if I hadn't done that, we might have ended up with a lot more white space, which can be beautiful, but we have something that still has some pastel, but is more saturated and pigmented overall. The other thing that really helped us today was spinning the water out of the Roving before adding it to the jar. This allowed the Roving to soak up that color, but it allowed us also to add the amount of liquid that we really wanted to. There's 200 grams of Roving here, and I don't think that the 2 different 100-gram pieces are perfectly matched by any stretch, but this can coordinate together, and there are many ways that this could be spun to create some cohesive, beautiful yarn. I'm happy that the differences between the two are overall pretty minor. I was a little concerned when I started off going for something really similar so we could compare, and then, well, I added 2 ends of 1 piece of Roving to the same jar. Whoops! I think you can see just how fluffy this fiber is, and I did not fluff this up at all. I absolutely love using a spin dryer when dyeing Roving. I think that removing the water before you let it dry allows it to fluff up, whereas if the water's in there, it sort of weighs it down a little bit more. Solar dyeing Roving has been on my list for a while, and I'm honestly not sure why it took me so long to play around with it. Sarah, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode of Dyepot Weekly. I really hope that you will enjoy spinning this Roving. If you would like to learn more about how you as an individual viewer can sponsor an episode of Dyepot Weekly, you can find a link in the video description and iCard to the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. Sponsors get shoutouts in the videos, plus 100, or if you do the add-on, 200 grams of fiber dyed in the video, and you give me some colors to avoid, pick the fiber base, and I will come up with a dyeing video with you in mind. It's so much fun, and you really should go check it out. Of course, my Etsy store is filled with dozens of other skeins of hand-dyed yarn, so you can check those out as well. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like, a thumbs up, turn on notifications, and subscribe to the channel. You want to make sure you never miss a new video. I publish at least 2 new videos every week, and there's also frequent unboxings and live streams, and we just have so much fun over here. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.